Are you in the market for a new recording interface? You're drooling all over the Universal Audio Apollo Twin because, well, you're a modern metal guy and everybody else has one and you want to be cool like everyone else. The only problem is they're $999. What are you to do? What if I told you there's another interface that does almost exactly the same thing that the Apollo does and is $400 cheaper? Let's have a look. All right, got my mini unboxing table today. I've done all those rapid fire unboxings over the last couple months. I figured, you know what, I kind of miss doing these, having the overhead camera. What do you guys prefer? I want to hear from you. Let me know. Do you like the rapid fire unboxes or do you like the, hey, let's take a look and see what we're actually getting here? Did save the one part though about cutting the box open because, that's just so dramatic. Let's see what we got here. So we got the Zen Quadro. Look at that. Let's see what we get here. Drummers, this is not a toy. Don't put this over your head. We don't want you to suffocate. Some of us don't want you to suffocate. I mean, you guys are seeing it first for me as well as me here, so you are the chosen one. Chosen for what exactly? That's kind of terrifying. We get some foam protection, good. All right, see, now this is nice, solid packaging. I just reviewed a guitar recently where the shipping material wasn't all that great, and that's what I'm thinking. I might need to slow down the unboxings a little bit so we can see what we're getting for our money. Ooh, what do we get here? These are freaking handy. I'm sure we've all lost these once in a while. This is a USB to like USB-C adapter. Oh, wow. That's actually great. USB-C cable. That's got cloth. It's not plastic, so that should last a little bit longer. Wow, look at that. It's clicky. And it pushes. Okay, we've got a button for gain, HP Mon, so that's obvious headphones or monitoring, and then we've got an antelope button. This is what I really like is we've got easy access to the important things. We've got a combo jack here for mic and line, plus looks like for guitar as well, plus we've got our headphone outs right there. On the back, we've got a couple more combo jacks. We've got 4 outputs. This is kind of my bare minimum for an interface, to be honest with you. If I'm gonna do any kind of work, I need 4 outputs, not just 2, because I need 2 to go to the monitors and then 2 to go to some outboard effects because I like shit like that. And we've even got dual USB-C slots. This is the part I missed earlier. It's got an ADAT input, and I'm gonna have a few words on that in the future, but that's a big one for me. I gotta have some extra connectivity like that for doing things like live drums. The SPDIF, I haven't used the SPDIF since like 2000. Honestly, I don't know why the hell they still include these things. So that's the box. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to get it onto my Mac Studio, get it hooked up, and get the new firmware in place because they're saying, hey, make sure you upgrade this. Let's get to it. Let's see what this thing can do. So I moved over to the desk here and I was kind of scratching my head. Okay, how do I hook this thing up? What do I want to show? And I thought, well, I could hook it up to my laptop. That'd be a bunch of different stuff to install, not regarding the Zen Quadro, but just a whole bunch of other software I'd want to install. I'm like, screw it, let's just hook it up to my main machine and see how it goes. And I gotta say, it was way less painful than I thought it was gonna be. The software dropped in with like no issues whatsoever. I've got the new firmware up here. It does the thing and it does it really simply. Now, a couple things blew me away other than the really easy software install. Number one, I was actually able to just sit it up here on the Neve, and I've got it to go to like channels 15, 16 on the line inputs. So that's going through my monitors and whatnot. But I'm actually just mixing everything right through the Zen Quadro. Everything's in software right now. And this is what I absolutely love. Since I've been doing YouTube, I've always compressed my vocals on the way in with a compressor. Usually I've got a hardware distressor going. This, I'm doing the same thing here. I'm using a Software 1176 emulation here. If I bypass this, now I've got it off and now it's doing the normal thing you would get on a normal mic. And if we kick on the compressor, you can see it's ducking and I can get really shouty and it does the same thing I do normally. That's really freaking cool. All you got to do is basically set this up like you would hardware. And that is use your effects inserts. So on Reaper, I've got the RIA insert and I use this all the time for getting in and out of Reaper into various hardware things. Same thing here. I've got it set to my outputs 3 and 4 on the big screen here. And then on the little screen here, I've got it for USB play. And I've got a pair of 1176s and this is going to some drum room mics. I'm going to show you guys what these are doing. When I punch them in and out, these are really great. There's some fantastic drum tracks done by my good friend Jackson Ward, and we're going to solo them up. So that's just raw mics. We kick them in, they do the thing. We put them in a full drum mix. That's without the drum mic, or without the room mics. And without the compression. That's pretty damn impressive. Kind of reminds me of the stems I got back. They're not an exact match, of course, but that's really damn impressive, especially when you consider the price of admission. Not bad at all. Another thing I would use on a typical drum mix, I throw on a DBX style compressor, and this is going on the drums in just a sec here. No compression. Let's kick it on. Get this going here. Hey, look at that. You know, it's like I'm mixing completely in the box and I'm using this Neve basically as a giant mouse. It's kind of doing the trick, actually. It's pretty cool, but I gotta say, just on as a bus compressor, this is not doing too bad at all. Just brings up a bit more of that room. It kind of makes it all fit together just a little bit more. Yeah, I definitely use that on a mix. That's for sure. A little gripe here. There's only 6 effects. I'm using one as a compressor on the way in, but considering I'm not really doing all that much compression on my mixes anymore, that might actually do fine. The cool thing is you can fit like 6 effects into a slot here. So if you wanted to throw some EQ in before or after that compressor, that wouldn't be a problem. And there is just a ton of effects to go through here. I'm not even going to get into it. They've got amp sims and all that. Now, speaking of amp sims, one of my biggest gripes with a lot of small interfaces is the lack of headroom on the DIs. This thing's got a couple of DIs in the front, and we've got a switch here to go from mic, line to high Z, which is, of course, the DI. And you can see I've got this thing cranked because this one's kind of the exact opposite of a lot of different DIs. I'm actually having to crank the gain over to get something into the right region. Let me show you what I mean. That's totally cranked, and it's pushing about 5 dBs. I've been no way even close to actually clipping this thing. Here's the interesting thing. If I set it to mic input, I can get that much more input on it. And I mean, like, these are relatively low output Tesla pickups. So yeah, this thing's got room to spare. Now, if I reach for a guitar with much hotter pickups like the Spectre with some Fishman Fluence, I've got to bring the input way down to about 26 dB. And that's a pretty comfortable level there. So yeah, it's got more than enough headroom to handle your guitar. That's a big win in my book. All right, I'm gonna do something here I've never actually done before on an interface review. I usually do this on the guitar reviews, and that is the Spectre Sound 5-star breakdown. Let's break this down into the various categories and see what this thing does in terms of delivering the goods. For connectivity, 4 stars. For an interface this size, it's got a lot of connections. I like the idea of having 4 analog ins and outs because it allows me to use outboard. Now, this has been one of my biggest gripes with so many small interfaces, that you only get 2 analog outputs, and those wind up going to your monitors, and then you're out of options. Here, you can have 2 going to monitors plus 2 going out to a pair of compressors or EQs. Now, that's what I'm looking for because I love to throw my mix to a 2-channel analog bus code. It's a certain flavor that I've come to rely on when mixing, and this gives me the option. One of the other things I look for is an ADAT connection, and the Zen doesn't disappoint. If I want to track drums, there's a ton of 8-channel converters out there, and many with 8 built-in mic preamps, so this can give me a total of 12 analog ends, which should be enough to track most reasonably sized drum sets. But then again, drums are rarely reasonable, and will insist you mic up their percussion tree that they'll only play once on a 67-minute album, as well as their 6 toms, but they only actually play 2 of them. So good luck having that argument with your drummer. That is, once you can get him to stop drooling all over himself. Now, the ADAT really isn't a make or break thing for me anymore because I can simply set up a Mac aggregate device and do it that way and not have to dick around with LightPipe. What's that you say? You don't have an aggregate device on PC? Oh yeah, that's right. Maybe it's time to consider changing systems because Mac doesn't limit you to 1 sound device or record every single thing you do on your computer via AI. Get your private browsing goodbye there, PC users. Software, 3.5 stars. The plugins sound surprisingly awesome. I've got no issue with the sound quality at all. The implementation, on the other hand, well, it sucks that you can only do the onboard processing and access it via the Antelope launcher. Yes, they have native versions of the plugins that will run directly on your software, but that's a whole subscription thing and an extra cost to the user, and I know just how much you love paying for subscription software. My suggestion is to treat the onboard processing much like you treat hardware. Set it, and forget it. When I send a signal out from my Neve to a rack compressor, I control the level via the send on the board and don't reach for the racks at all. Treat this the same way and you'll have a much easier time of working this way. It also cuts down on option paralysis, something I've let myself get bogged down in way too many times. As for the onboard routing software, it's pretty great. The loopback functions do the thing for streaming, and it's not overly complicated. By way of comparison, the routing software on the Galaxy G32, which I've got over here, and I've got plugged into the Neve, is just plain fucking insane. Definitely took a few hours to wrap my head around that, and you can look for a review of that coming out next month because it's the mother of all interfaces. Guitar DI. 4 stars. These are what make or break a small interface, in my opinion. Can the interface handle the signal from a high output pickup? So many companies have utterly failed on this one. Most famously, Focusrite with their first generation Scarlett. Hell, even Neve screwed this one up with the 88M. They had to add a pad onto it after I released my video. However, in this case, the DI on the Zen Quadro handles the high output pickups with 0 issues. You will have to crank the gain on a lower output pickup, however, so do keep that in mind. And if you get past a certain threshold, it can get a bit screechy with the high gain amp sims, so there's definitely a sweet spot to shoot for. Just keep that in mind. But in my experience, it handled everything I could throw at it. So my overall rating is 3.75 stars. At $599, that is $400 less than the Universal Audio Apollo Twin with similar functionality. That's not bad in my opinion. The onboard effects are great, just the implementation's a tiny bit on the clunky side. But once you figure out your DAW's routing for inserts, it shouldn't be a problem. Just be prepared for at least one session of grief. There is a learning curve here. And there's an awful lot of plugins that come with this thing. I've only had the chance to play around with a few of the compressors, but they're very, very well done. So if you're looking to expand your setup or get yourself a killer first interface, Zen Quadro delivers the goods and throws in pretty much the entire kitchen sink along with it. I'll have links in the description below and you can find them online or even order directly from Analog. That's it for today. Now fuck off.